All right, we're live. It took forever for us to get live because we had to wait for that circus in Knoxville to end. Dunaway is in Davis Wade Stadium, as you can see, over in Starkville, Mississippi, where Alabama won. Have you ever seen anything like we just saw at the end of that game there, Jim? That's crazy.
No, I've read things throughout history. Bear Bryant had to wear a helmet off the field one time at Georgia Tech. I was actually at Ole Miss one time when a whiskey bottle hit Brian King, a photographer who I think was with the Tuscaloosa station at the time, what used to be 33 before it became ABC 3240. And that stopped the game briefly because he stumbled onto the field with blood going everywhere. But, nothing like what
Jeez.
we saw tonight. I really think that, I think this was a situation where, it was entertaining television and something we'll tell our grandkids about. But I hope at some point the SEC of operations we're discussing a forfeit at that point. Don't even play the last 54 seconds and just call it and head to the locker rooms. Let's go. Ole Miss victory. I don't know what you do in that situation. What if it had gotten worse? I don't know. But scary at the end, boy. That would have been crazy if they'd gotten a touchdown.
You're not lying. Not great awareness by Joe Milton there at the end. All right, we've populated, so let's get this baby rolling. All right, it's the Saturday Breakout presented by Culver's. Welcome to Delicious. He is Jim Dunaway in Starkville. I am Ryan Brown in Birmingham. You look cold, Jim. Is it nice and cool out there in Starkville?
Yeah, it's in the 50s, and it's a little breezy high atop Davis Wade here, but it's a victorious night for Alabama. Great day for Auburn. Great day for UAB, and interesting one in Knoxville.
Yeah, boy, it was. Let's start with the state teams. We'll just go, I guess, in order of how the games played today. Let's start with Auburn. They go on the road to Arkansas. I thought, both these teams are 4-2 coming into this game. And we talked about it this week, Jim. They didn't feel like the same 4-2. I mean, Arkansas had gotten a lot more love for their 4-2 than Auburn had for theirs. But where I thought these two teams were in the same spot was both of these teams, I think, were in desperate need of a win. Arkansas didn't want to get 3 straight losses and lose all the momentum they built. And Auburn, with the schedule that is left, they don't want wins starting to stack up. So I thought you had two pretty desperate teams that played like it, and Auburn played better than Arkansas. They were the better team today.
Yeah, they were the better team today, and you have to start asking yourself. I mean, Texas lost again. Texas A&M's lost a couple of games, but they did beat Alabama. You just wonder, how good of a team this Arkansas team is now. I think they're still a really good football team, and I think Auburn played really well today. Bo Nix made some really good throws. With Tank Bigsby ran the ball, about as good as we've seen him run in a long, long time. And you're exactly right. I mean, there's a couple of scenarios in the SEC where you have identical records and not the same reaction. Auburn and Arkansas going into this game, but coming out of the one in Baton Rouge, Ed Orgeron's going to get fired, and he's got the same record as Dan Mullen. So it does depend on how you look at some things. But I thought Auburn played really well today.
Well, I think it's Bo Nix. I tweeted that we've always looked for his best road game, and this was it. And a lot of people said, no. This is his best game, period. I don't have all Bo's career numbers in front of me, but when you go on the road to a conference team that was ranked in the top 20, and you're 21 of 26, 292, 2 touchdowns, he did throw the 1 pick. And then he ran it 5 more times for 42 yards and a touchdown. So 3 total touchdowns, only 5 incomplete passes, almost 300 pass yards. Probably the best we have seen Bo Nix play.
He was really good. And that one deep touchdown pass was just on the money, hitting Demetrius in stride. I thought the offensive line was going to be challenged in this game, and they played better. I think all of it, goes back to just finding some semblance of a run game. They didn't have that against Georgia. So there was no way to get anything going offensively, and they found that. I mean, Tank, the questions about his health went away very early when he just made that big juke and went straight to the corner of the end zone. Didn't quite get in, but ended up punching it in. I think that's one of those Tank Bigsby runs that we were expecting 100 of this year. So I think that really helped the offense a lot.
Yeah, 18 carries, 68 yards, and a touchdown for Tank Bigsby. Still not trying to nitpick here. It's a great win for Auburn, but we're still waiting for Tank Bigsby to be that 100-yard-a-game type guy that we thought he was going to be, and that he was until a few games back, really up and through the Penn State game. So, Auburn ran the ball better, though. 35 carries, 135 yards for the Tigers. They win at 38-23, still 5-2. for Auburn, and now you get a bye week before you have to play the Ole Miss team we just saw beat Tennessee. So, into the first bye through the first 7 games, I would say you probably give Brian Harsin a high B? Is that what you'd give
Yeah,
Brian
B
Harsin here?
plus. Yeah,
B
yeah,
plus?
B plus, easy. I mean, they're 5-2, and as we talked about this week on the next round, if Sean Clifford doesn't get hurt, their only 2 losses have been to the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country. So that Penn State team apparently is would have beaten that Iowa team. I think we saw that today with what happened to Iowa. So I think Auburn's 2 losses are quality losses. The Georgia State game's the one that changes our whole feeling about this season. I really believe that if the Georgia State scenario didn't play out, where Bo got yanked and TJ Finley goes in there, and the discussion about should Bo start, not start, sort of ramps up all the way to the LSU win, because that still feels like a loss. Even though they beat Georgia State, that still feels like a loss. And I think that is what is shadowing right now this Auburn football season, because they're 5-2 going to the break, and then the SEC 5-2. 5-2 is a great record.
All right, so Troy says this, couple observations. Auburn's third down and goal line play calling is next level horrible, he says. Auburn looks to be decisively better on the road than at home, and it was Bo's best game. They have played their 2 best games on the road at LSU and at Arkansas. I think he's right about that. I don't know, if that'll keep up this year, but those are the 2 best games they've played.
And I thought they played well at Penn State too. So
Yeah.
I mean, everywhere away from Jordan-Hare Stadium has been really good this year. But Georgia State was just a bad situation, bad game. Georgia's number 1 in the country. You can't judge by that. And the other 2 games were against not light competition. So we'll find out. We'll find out what this Auburn team is made of down the stretch here. But I thought today was just a big positive, because, like you said, this was a desperate Arkansas team, desperate to get some good mojo going. That team, after it beat Texas and Texas A&M, you could have made a lot of money betting with Arkansas fans that they would lose 3 games in a row. They would have never thought they would have lost 3 games in a row at this point.
Yeah, and the way they've done it, they got blown out by Georgia. I think you could have seen that one coming. The one that'd be tough to swallow is that Ole Miss game. That's the one they'll look back on and probably think their season could have been different. Is Lance's leaf blower guy out there with you, Dunaway? Is that what we're hearing?
Well, you're about to get about 8 of those here in a second. They're blowing the stadium clean and blowing grass around. And so it's typical. This is what happens for those that are in stadiums well after a game is over with. You get a lot of cleanup going on. Is it so bad you need to drop me? Or
No. It's not that. You're not that lucky. Culver's, welcome to Delicious. They're bringing you our Saturday breakout here on the next round. We'll get more of your reaction. Let's talk about Alabama. Jim is there in Starkville. You watch with your own 2 eyes, Jim. 49-9. A lot of people wondered what type of reaction you would get from an Alabama team that 1 week ago tonight played one of the worst games we've seen of the Saban era. They lost their number 1 ranking. They lost a game. They had a failure in every aspect of the game, and a lot of people wondered what we would see out of an Alabama team. I think if you were one of those that asked that question, you have to be pleased with the answer tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite part of the game was Nick Saban calling a timeout in the red zone because they were empty backfields. And at least Bryce was bringing Brian Robinson back to line up beside him. And Nick Saban called timeout and joked about it post-game that he didn't want to throw anybody under the bus. But I mean, he called timeout, and I would imagine in a few choice words told Bill O'Brien to run the ball, and they ran it into the end zone. And you saw a little bit more of that. But I'm still, you come here and you win this game 49-9. Your first takeaway is Mike Leach's way of playing offense works in some cases. It is having 0 success against Nick Saban's philosophy and Alabama's talent, because I think they got shut out last year, if I remember correctly, and tonight they got 3 field goals. Right. So in 2 tries at the Alabama Monster, and these are not great Alabama defenses, Mike Leach has had 0 touchdowns. So, if Mike Leach is going to do something in this league against Alabama, he may have to get a little bigger sheet of paper on the call sheet over there.
So they may not be a great defense. They were tonight, though, and Will Anderson individually was spectacular. They had no answer for him, Jim. And I'll say this to Mike Leach. I do think he's a smart guy. They continue to try to single block Will Anderson. And Lindsey, the tackle for them had no, I mean, he wasn't going to single block him. Anderson had 4 sacks tonight, 6 tackles, 5 solo tackles, 4 sacks. The last player, when you talk sacks in Alabama football lore, generally any record is held by who? It was the last guy
Derek
to have
Thomas.
4 sacks in a game. That's right, Derek Thomas, last guy to have 4 sacks in a game. So when you hit Derek Thomas levels, you've done something in Alabama football history.
Well, I thought they did a really good job of, stunting. Not that I know a lot of football, but you saw a lot of movement going one way and then completely coming back around the other side to get around the blocking schemes they have. They were not rushing a lot of people at times tonight. 3 and then a late 4th guy often was sort of the more common thing you saw all night long, because that's just the way you sort of blanket the receiving patterns of this Mike Leach offense. So I thought it was a really good defensive game plan. It was really well executed tonight. And when you're able to get pressure with that few people going from a guy like Will Anderson, then I think that's a result you're always going to have against this kind of offense.
That's what Charles says. Great D by Bama tonight. Finally, some pressure. It has been a criticism of this defense, and it was a huge criticism and a valid criticism of them at College Station, Jim, that they could not pressure Calzada. Tonight, 7 sacks in an offense where you often say it's hard to sack the quarterback because a lot of the passes come out quick, and there's always that check down, and it's hard to get pressure on Rodgers. Look, I'll say this. The Christian Harris sack, Rodgers got hurt, and I appreciate his toughness playing the game. But, Jim, it affected his play the rest of the game. He was scared to take the hit. I don't think he could throw the ball very effectively. That was a late night Starkville. That was a tough spot for him. And Alabama, to their credit, once they realized they had a wounded animal, they kept coming after him.
Yeah, they did. He did complete one ball. What was it, about 40 yards to midfield?
Yeah, one long pass.
After that injury, but most of his passes were very short, 10 yards or right around there or less. And he was not as accurate the rest of the night as well. I mean, it became he was throwing darts and not always hitting the board tonight. So it was not a great game from Will. We're having some interesting discussions sometimes over on the sidelines as well, but I kept waiting for somebody else to warm up, and there never was. And this was I wouldn't even say it was an intimidating atmosphere pregame.
Right.
But the place was packed when you started. But very early on, the crowd got taken out of this thing, and it ended up not being a very juiced atmosphere at all.
Let's talk about Bryce Young, 20 of 28, 348, 4 touchdowns, no picks, had a clean sheet. That was about as good as Bryce Young has looked. He had time to throw. They protected him, for the most part, I think, pretty well. And that was vintage Bryce, or what you hope is vintage Bryce Young. That's about as clean as you're going to see him play, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he did get knocked around a couple of times, though. He had to run a few times and got hit on what was originally flagged as a late hit, but correctly they picked the flag up. So no, it was I don't think it was a great night of protection. I think the young quarterback got hit a couple of times and had to run a couple of times and got hit when he ran. But he continues, I think, to bail Alabama's blockers out of mistakes over and over again. I still feel like you're getting some pressure from the right side more often than not. And I think, I got asked during the game by somebody on our Twitter timeline at Next Round Live, where have the tight end passes gone? Well, I really do believe the tight ends are having to, worry so much about pass pro that
Yeah, and Joe, you broke up there a little bit, but I know what you were saying is that they're having to worry so much about helping with pass protection, they can't be active in the receiving game. And again, they got blanked a little bit. He tried to go to Latu one time, had Latu. It was going to take a perfect pass, had him for a touchdown, couldn't get it to him. Tried to go to Billingsley one time, it was knocked away. But Mechie had a huge game tonight, 7 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. You didn't get a whole lot out of Jamison Williams. He only had 2 catches, but boy, he made one of them count, man. That guy Dunaway, I've not seen him in person. I've not been to an Alabama game in person this year, obviously, but on TV. And I'm curious with you having seen him in person, a catch like he made, his speed is spectacular.
So the receivers showed that on a couple of those touchdowns where you make the catch and the run, and I thought that was where Alabama separated themselves tonight, was the just the speed, the quick catch and the run, and what they were able to do after that. And you're right with the Jamison Williams play. That was
Yeah.
one for the ages, man. That was one that, right out of the locker room to go in the second half, you make the catch, you take it 75 yards, and that was the ball game. If there was any hope of a Mississippi State comeback, that's when the students packed up the cowbells and went to the frat houses.
Yeah, I mean, first play out of the locker room, you come and you drop the hammer on them just like that. Real quick, Brian Robinson, massive in the pass game tonight. He had the catch for the touchdown, 5 total catches, but where he was so good in a way was picking up the blitz. He stoned blitzer after blitzer after blitzer and saved his quarterback. He was fantastic in the pass game.
Yeah, but you really would not like, you'd sort of hope he wouldn't have to do that over and over again, right? That
You're right.
but that is his
You're
job, and he's back there doing that as good as anybody in the league at protecting the quarterback. And Brian Robinson, Brian Robinson absolutely has proven that he can be running back number one, that he's the best running back on this team. Not only with the way he's running the football, but the way he's catching the football, and like you said, the way he is protecting doing probably the most important part of his job, and that's protecting the quarterback.
Let's talk about it is the Saturday Breakout presented by Culver's. Welcome to Delicious. Let's talk about what we just saw in the Southeastern Conference. First of all, Georgia dominating Kentucky. Not a surprise there that they dominated them. I would have to say Kentucky probably hung in this game better than you thought they were going to. And I would have to say the same thing. I mean, you look at that final score, it's pretty one-sided, but I thought Kentucky kind of made a good showing for themselves based on what most people thought. Now, listen, there people are going to talk about punching it in at the end to make it look better, but, I mean, they lost by 17. That's pretty respectable, I think.
Yeah, but what was it? It was a 34-10 game, and they got a touchdown late. Is that what it was? 34-10?
30. What was it?
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, they scored a late touchdown to make it not a 24-point game. So I thought it would be about a 24-point game or worse. That late touchdown is a garbage touchdown. I mean, it impacts you if you're gambling. But in the big scheme of things, it doesn't impact the way I feel about that game. Georgia is up here and Kentucky is down here. And, the question now is Florida here, or is Florida down even lower than Kentucky? Because Florida got it handed to them today, too. I don't know who is going to contend with Georgia. Maybe it'll be this Alabama team in Atlanta. Maybe it'll be somebody else in the playoffs, but I didn't see anything today that made me doubt Georgia at all. And, I didn't really see anything from Kentucky that blew me away. That game went just about the way I thought it would go. And I think most of America thought it would go that way.
Yeah. I don't know who's going to play with Georgia. They're going to be in Atlanta, obviously. I don't think anybody's going to beat them between now and then the way they look. Florida is a huge disappointment. We go into that game thinking it's going to be Ed Orgeron fighting for his job, and I'm not about to suggest that Dan Mullen is fighting for his job, but you watch that game, and if I had told you one coach is fighting for his job, you would have guessed it was Dan Mullen. If you knew nothing else and you watched that game.
That's what I said earlier, that it's funny what a league we are, that one guy is 4-3 and beats the guy who's now 4-3. But there's nobody who thinks the guy who won the game today is going to keep his job, and there's nobody who thinks the other guy should be fired. And it doesn't always add up, but that is where we are. There's nobody that thinks Dan Mullen should be fired, and there are very few people who will stand up and say Ed Orgeron should keep his job. Yet they're the same guys right now, except one's got a national championship and the other one doesn't. So I mean, you tell me, what's Dan Mullen doing with all of his stuff in Gainesville that makes you want to keep Dan Mullen as your coach, or makes you fall in love with Dan Mullen, or makes you think that he is some kind of elite coach. Where I know I've never put him into that category. He did a good job, not a great job. He did a good job here. He had a great year in 2014, 1 year. Anytime they were off to a great start, they would run into Alabama and lose that game. Sometimes they would back that up with losing the Egg Bowl. And now he's got all the toys. He's got all the recruiting advantages. He's got all of that. And they lost 4 games last year. He's lost 3 this year. That's the kind of stuff that gets Gus Malzahn fired. It's the kind of stuff that's going to get Ed Orgeron fired.
Well, I mean, and here's the truth. He's about to be 4-4. He's 4-3 right now. They've got to bye before the cocktail party. They're going to lose that game. He's going to be 4-4. The only saving grace for Dan Mullen, it's going to be another 4-loss season because he closes out with South Carolina, who had to fight tooth and nail to beat Vandy today. They went back to I don't know if you saw this, Dunaway, because I know you were there in Starkville. They went back to the graduate assistant quarterback, Zeb Nolan, who led them for the game-winning score against Vandy. That's how sad that was. So they'll beat South Carolina. They've got Samford, they've got Missouri, and they've got Florida State. They should win those 4. So he's going to end up 8-4, but that's becoming what you get with Dan Mullen is 8-4. And I don't know how long Florida fans are going to settle for 8-4.
Well, I mean, I would say, I guess 1 more year. But the other guy who beat him today is on his way out. You know, you go ahead and print that. And then here's Mike Leach. I know he's only in his 2nd year, but what's Mike Leach doing for you here, right? That Dan Mullen didn't do for you here. Yeah, how quickly we fire people now. You wonder, who's on firm ground. Who's on firm ground? Jimbo Fisher's on firm ground now because he beat Alabama last week, but we were ready to roast him after 2 losses. People were like, is he worth the money he's getting paid? So who's standing on solid ground,
Yeah, I had Jimbo having a letdown today. They didn't, by the way. My upset alert got torched pretty bad there. They lost pretty handily at Missouri. The game we were delayed because of, let's talk about it, Ole Miss and Tennessee. Lane Kiffin's return to Tennessee. He'd been back there as a coordinator at Alabama, obviously, but his return as a head coach, it was a very entertaining, fun game with a very ugly ending. But let's talk about the game itself. Matt Corral was spectacular, Dunaway. I mean, just play after play after play by the Heisman Trophy candidate for Ole Miss. And he carried that team. He willed that team to a win. I'll give you his numbers right here. Corral, 21 of 38 passing, 231, 2 touchdowns. He threw his first interception of the season. It was a bad one, too. But he also ran 30 times for 195 yards. So 38 pass attempts, 30 rush attempts. Just a spectacular game by Matt Corral. He was their offense.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, he was their offense. But should he have been their offense? What wasn't there for them as you watched that game today? Why did he have to do so much? Why was Jerry Ely and those type guys not making more plays? I mean, they were what they end up running 99 plays tonight. Something like that. I think it was 99. If you count the punt, 100 plays dead even, I bet.
Yeah, probably so. Somewhere in there. I don't have the exact number of plays, but yeah, I mean, they ended up with 510 total yards. They weren't running the ball effectively, Jim, to answer your question. You ask about the backs. I'll give you Ely and Snoop Connor's numbers, and you'll see why Corral had to run so much. 15 carries by Snoop Connor, 24 yards. That's 1.6 per carry. But he did score 2 touchdowns. He made the most of those 24 yards. Jerry and Ely, 7 carries, 19 yards. He was 2.7 per carry. They didn't do anything. I mean, Snoop Connor had 24 rush yards. He had a 7-yard rush mixed in with that. So basically, he had 14 carries for 17 yards outside of that 7-yard run. They just could not. They had no traditional run game. It was all Matt Corral tonight. I mean, he carried that team to the 31-26 win.
Yeah. So hats off to him, and hats off to the way Ole Miss handled the situation at the end of the game. Tennessee had a chance there. That Tennessee team, I don't know the extent of Hendon Hooker's injury, but they come to Tuscaloosa next week, and Hooker made them a more dangerous team the way he's able to run with the football himself. And say what you will about Josh Heupel, I think that team's improved a little bit.
Well, they did that. I mean, it was pretty much the same thing for them because Hendon Hooker carried them Dunaway, 17 of 26, 233 through the air and a touchdown. And he led in rushing as well, 23 carries, 108 yards. They did get a little more rushing in their traditional run game, but it was almost like the two coaches just said, we're going to put our quarterbacks out there and just let them carry the load. And it was quarterback after quarterback run after quarterback run after quarterback run. That's where all the rush yards came from in this game, basically.
Every time I looked up at that game, an Ole Miss player was down cramping. Was
Yep.
that the story of the whole night? The both sides were just cramping all night long?
Both sides. Yeah, both
Yeah.
sides. You had a lot of plays in that game, both sides. Now, there was a lot of booing. A lot of people felt like the Ole Miss players were trying to slow down. Heupel is he's an up-tempo guy. He wants to run a lot of plays, and they were booing, thinking that Ole Miss was trying to slow it down. But, you had some guys go off to get the IVs. Some of the injuries looked legit. I don't know if there was some slowdowns going. But, right at the very end, I know you saw this. Hooker didn't get to finish the game. They had to bring in Joe Milton, whose game awareness was less than zero, especially at the end there. But Hooker couldn't even finish the game. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it was just the exceptional number of plays. But, yeah, there was a lot of cramping in that game.
I think I lost you, Brownie, for a second, but I'm back.
You did.
Yeah, I lost you for a second. I'm back now, though.
Yeah. You're good. Let's talk about the national scene. All right. This is Culver's. Welcome to Delicious. It's the Saturday Breakout. Dunaway is in Starkville. We turn to the national scene. Number 2, Iowa took their first loss of the season. Purdue went in, Dunaway, and rotated 3 quarterbacks. 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 quarterbacks Purdue did. Went in and rotated those 3 quarterbacks and somehow beat the number 2 team in the nation, who looked absolutely terrible in their home stadium, in Kinnick Stadium there. Purdue ran them out. I never thought Iowa was the number 2 team in the country. They really didn't look like a top 20 team in the country today against Purdue. That was a shellacking. That was not a fluke. Purdue was that much better than Iowa today.
It ended up being that way. Yeah. Brown, it's getting to where I really couldn't hear you there. I don't know if you still hear me. I was saying that LT called it. Purdue was going to win this game. I didn't know they were going to win it the way they wanted and as dominant as they were going to do it today. And I thought it was a great tweet from the Purdue official site where it said, we just beat the number 2 out of Iowa. I thought that was a great tweet.
That was a great tweet, and ESPN used it as well. All right, so Dunaway's in Starkville. He's going to head out into the nightlife at Starkville. We'll see you guys Monday on the next round. This has been the Saturday Breakout presented by Culver's. Welcome to Delicious. You guys have a great night out there. Thanks for spending some time with us tonight, and we'll be live Monday, 9 until 1. Bo Nix, Nick Saban, Monday, and we'll talk with you about everything you've seen here. You guys have a great night. Thanks for joining us.
Can you see the sprinklers?
I cannot.
Can you see the sprinklers are on? No, okay.
It's very bright. Why?
The sprinklers are on. On now?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. That would be cold. I would not walk through that if I were you.
It's a beautiful shot.
Yes, lovely.